So Tanupriya also joined us during our panel discussion. So she also comes with 16 plus years of experience in the IT industry, and also and basically work across. She's working across various clients in the BFSI domain, and is an experienced senior VP Global Delivery Head at Quality Kiosk Technologies. If you want to know more about Tanupriya, feel free to go to our website, and you'll see a lot of all the speakers links there, and even the LinkedIn links are also connected there, so you can go through there and see more about Anupriya. And the interesting topic which Anupriya is presenting is AI/ML in the quality assurance and autonomous QA. As you know, AI/ML is next buzzword nowadays. So, and putting that in the quality assurance is also is an interesting thing to understand from her. So over to you, Tanupriya. If you can hear us, you can take a
Yes,
control now.
thanks. Yeah, thanks, Ujay, and thanks for the great presentations from Raghav, Brajesh, Satprakash. I think all of them are pretty related, and the topic that I'm going to choose, let me just try to present my screen. Can you see the presentation?
No, we can see the browser where the schedule is there.
Can you see the presentation now?
Uh, no, it is not yet come. Yes, now we can see the AI/ML in quality assurance presentation.
Sure, yeah. So I'll be talking about AI/ML in quality assurance and autonomous QA. So what is the difference between artificial intelligence and autonomous intelligence is the first thought that I'd like to invoke. And I think Satyaprakash has talked in details about the different kind of modeling techniques that are used, the different, what is cognitive, what is a kind of model-based testing. Now we are talking about something which is more automatic. In the morning, in the panel discussion, when we were discussing, we had been discussing on, the end-to-end QA. And when I talk about the end-to-end QA, this is something where we have some manual interventions, there are some automations which are running. What does autonomous actually convey to us? It says that this complete machinery runs without any human intervention, and it's like a self-driving car. So when I talk about artificial intelligence, it's like building that intelligence into your systems. And when we talk about autonomous, with this intelligence, I start running. So that's what autonomous means to us. So coming to what Gartner has to say, the intelligent automation, what do we mean by intelligent automation? This automation which is, you keep learning, it learns and it knows how to, what to use in what context. And this will start saving some additional 20% of what is achieved today. So going ahead into the evaluation of quality assurance, if you remember, we started testing over manual testing came the various testing tools. We have UFT, we had RFT at that point in time, we had Silk. So there were a lot of automation tools which came in where we were doing manual testing, trying to automate basically the test execution. Eventually we came up into some robotic automation tools or the open source frameworks which try to attempt doing most of these automations using open source and using languages which were simpler than the initial Java or the initial VB that we were putting together. Post that, we came into an era which moved into a complete DevOps, continuous testing. So when we talked about DevOps, it was tying up right from the requirement to the time a release goes into production. That was a complete tie-up which was done by DevOps, where continuous testing was a part of it. And when we talked about continuous testing, it was majorly ensuring that, when my CI/CD is done, the bit of test which is run, automated, ensures that whatever build is there is actually safe and good to move into production or move into the next stage of environment. So there would be a bit of manual testing even when there was CT in place. Now that we have moved further, and I'll just walk you through the trends which are coming in. If you see, what has come up is more towards the autonomous testing, the AI ops, the ML ops. What does this bring into picture? So while we were doing DevOps, we were basically tying up the development with the operations. With an AI ops or an ML ops coming in, the complete ops actually feeds back into my development. So this is a complete cycle which keeps getting formed, and there are a lot of intelligence or machine learning that comes from the operations, gets fed back into my requirements, and right from the requirement stage we start ensuring that this complete cycle continues. If we just go through the trends which we have seen in a few years, and in maybe a 3 years period which we see, autonomous systems or the self-running systems would be the way of life. Blockchain, if you know, there are various even in the BFSI domain, there are insurers who are coming together. They are putting together the complete chunks of customer data, of all the kinds of data that they carry, and data becomes the key. That's where a blockchain itself gets automated, and we start studying different kind of customers, different kind of how say iCrew customers would behave, or how would an Aegon customer behave, what are the digit first companies actually tracking from a customer's perspective. Going ahead into a lot of platforms which are AI enabled, life cycle automation again becomes the key, where Satyaprakash talked about a lot of blocks which are put together. This is not modular. I mean, you'll have to combine all the models to ensure that the complete life cycle is automated, rather than looking at automation of just a part of the cycle, which is execution. Moving ahead into RPA automation, which is again a buzzword, and an AI ML based automation. So these are the general trends which we see. And from a industrialization, so from an industrialization perspective, if you see, there are CI/CD which has started coming in. We have analytics driven QA, headless automation, which we did for one of our customers, where they did not have any application in place. They were just APIs and microservices which we had to initiate, understand, and ensure that tests were written only to test those headless. And once the headless was assured, they started generating those UIs and those screens to actually render to the customer. Coming down to API and scriptless automation has been implemented, I mean hugely implemented in many places. Multi-tier automation, what do we mean by multi-tier automation? An automation which doesn't only handle one tier of say SIT or a kind of module, but it runs through, it cuts through your middleware, it cuts through your backend, it cuts through your database, it ensures everything in one go, knowing where the impacts are. Mobile test automation still is something which is getting discovered by the world. We have a lot of frameworks around that, Catalan, Karina, and there are a lot of frameworks which assure your complete mobile automation. Day one automation. So as we again discussed, an automation can't be an afterthought. The automation has to be built along with the normal test generation that we are doing. So when we talk about a day one automation, it majorly signifies that we are automating as we scrape my application. As you think through the application, the automation starts getting created. And then the virtualization of various environments. If I have to test something, I have to service virtualize the payment gateways, or I have to virtualize the third party systems which I will be interacting with, say a Policy Bazaar which is there. You'll have to virtualize a lot of things around the ecosystem, and ecosystem again becomes one of the biggest things. So as per McKinsey report, by 2025, 30% of our business will be completely in the ecosystem. So that's how they depict it. Hence business process management itself becomes a huge buzzword. So I won't be touching too much upon the tools and the other things. I'll be mainly concentrating on the concepts, and on the concepts of why an AI is to be done and how is it helping everyone. So what is exactly AI enabled quality assurance? So when we talk about quality assurance, we go to testing. I come back to requirements. Right at the requirement stage, you have to have a lot of mind maps which ensures that you actually understand what is the business that you are talking about. There could be various kinds of businesses. Say you have a product launch which has to happen, there is a change request which comes in, there's a new kind of project which comes in, say a CRM project or a new CRM implementation that you want to do. each of them will have a very different kind of suit that needs to be generated for it. If there's something which has to be migrated to cloud, a completely different suit will be required to run those tests. So with your AI enabled mind map, where you start thinking of, okay, this is my base problem, this is my project, what are the different ingredients of the project, what are the different modules of the project, and each of these modules, does it interact with something else, bringing in a lot of knowledge from what it is connected with, is what a test suite optimizer does. So if you look at a test suite optimizer, that's where you use your AI knowledge to understand what is the best suit to ensure that this change actually is tested well. Going further into your AI enabled designing and execution, what actually comes into this space is a lot of thought process around what we have done before. So having that experience or having that data of what have been the test strategies, if you look at it, the test scenario mining, it is majorly around what scenarios need to be covered for a given change. So that mining, I mean, you should have a complete scenario list or a scenario repository from where you club out the right fit scenario, and the system should be enabled to understand what is that particular scenario. System should be able to pick out the correct scenario for each of these, get into an AI enabled test strategy. When we talk about AI enabled test strategy, again, whenever there's a build which comes in, for each build there's a build verification testing. What are the tests that needs to be run there? Do I need a human to tell me that? There could be AI driven engines which will get you that strategy. Once a BVT is through and it passes say X% of the test, does it get, then it goes into SIT. What are the correct tests for SIT? What are the correct tests for UAT? Am I testing more? Am I testing less? Or am I testing just right? So your AI would, work in this area to understand what is the right fit for getting the strategies executed. The third most important part which comes is the test data analytics. When we talk about the test data, data itself is a humongous thing, or it eats up a very huge chunk of time from the automation, complete automation delivery that we do. So what do we do for test data? The data is something which runs across all systems. A customer will be a customer, whether it's an automotive industry, whether it's Amazon, whether it's Google, whether it's a banking industry, whether it's an insurance industry. So you have to have a rich set of all the customer data that you can get, and ensure that the correct set of customers actually are picked up for your testing. So that correctness of the data, or the logic to understand what are your correct data, what is the correct customer, and picking it itself becomes a science, and itself becomes a machine learning algorithm. One is customer data, second is the kind of say the orders that you are generating or the codes that you need to put in. So for all these quotations which needs to be driven, what are the different kinds of quotations that customers are driving in the real system? You have to have that data handy to understand what is it that you are testing. So data becomes the key to running any test that you want to run, and the correctness of your test or the success of your test majorly depends on the kind of data that you are using. Your data will be a combination of all the legacy data. Your data will be a combination of the new age data. So your data has to actually ensure that that richness comes back into your testing from production. Defect analytics again plays a very huge role in defining what we want to run. So every time you test a kind of a customer related module, a customer onboarding, it always fails at a place where it is interacting with your core system. That's the defective area, and hence the next time when you're coming to test, you always know that this is the place where I have to hit hard, I have to test deep. There are areas where you just have to have some basic details of the customer. Do you need to test that enough? It doesn't fail at that level, and there are very few changes there. So definitely you try to keep that aside. So your test strategy majorly depends again on the defect analytics. Now this defect, I'm talking about the defect that we ourselves keep finding out when we are testing. We can have a database of that. We are actually having a database of all the defects, and we keep studying those defects to understand what are the areas. Say always a policy issuance is something which keeps throwing defects, or a calculation is always defective. Do you ensure that most of your tests are around that defect? So it becomes again a very core value which actually feeds back into your AI system. strategy based execution, which ensures that all your execution which happens actually is aligned not only with whether it's a BBT, SIT, UAT, plus taking care of the data, taking care of the defects, eating from the requirement which is changing, and then this is the your execution suite which needs to go. The most important part again becomes the impact analysis. So if there's a change in one application, the system needs to continuously study whether with this defect there were 5 things that failed. Next time when I'm testing a similar kind of thing, do I need to catch all these 5? Or does it, or say I'm testing a set of APIs. I know 5 APIs are connected to 10 more APIs, and these are the most used APIs. I know that my strategy definitely needs to include those 5 APIs in detail. However, for the other APIs which are not so disturbed, or where the request response structures don't change, I can still handle them. So your impact, or understanding the impact of the changes, right from the tables where it is impacted, the codes where it is impacted, to the business functions which are impacted, has to be very thorough, and this needs to again fly back into your AI enabled designing and execution. Coming down to your production, now we talked about requirement, we talked about the test designing. Moving into production, there's a lot of sentiment of customers. So if you see, there are 2 things that we are highlighting here. One is the issue analysis or the defect analytics, or something which we basically call the production defects or the functional defects that you find in this area. So one is those defects and creating a complete list of those defects, feeding it back into the testing, feeding it back into the requirements. And second part is the customer sentiment. So you may need to study that a customer has gone to the third page, he's spending a lot of time on this page, he's actually leaving the website here, your customer loss is highly on some particular page. Or maybe trying to understand that the customer gets frustrated at which particular part of your business model, what is not working well, whether your third party APIs are working well, whether your third party interactions are doing fine. Everything needs to be captured as a customer analysis, and this data becomes very important for us again to ensure that what are we testing? Are we testing those customers time and again? Are we testing those customer journeys the way a customer is handling it? And then bringing it back into the complete life cycle of predicting the next. So basis this, it predicts what needs to be taken as a requirement next time, and what needs to be covered as a part of the requirement. So this complete cycle actually ensures that your quality assurance is a thought through and AI enabled, again something which keeps learning and which makes this engine continuously running, which ensures that the human intervention is spent more towards setting up the strategy right. Human intervention is more towards ensuring that your model is designed right, and it's more of human intervention to see what are the reports or what are the dashboards that I'm looking at. Rest everything I think is automated, and even from a dashboard perspective, it keeps giving you dashboards for the head of quality assurance. It gives you dashboards for what a CIO of the company wants to see from a technology perspective, what a COO wants to see from a business perspective, what are the business domains which are getting impacted, or what are the strategies for each of them, and how a CEO looks at an organization. So that complete driving of the complete testing cycle is actually gets AI enabled. Moving into the enablers of this complete thing, if you see, there are AI enabled business assurance models that we need to draft, regularly maintain regulatory requirements, which again becomes a key to whatever we are discussing right now, because again regulators play a major role in banks and insurances, and that has to be taken into consideration. One is the customer, second is the regulator. So you have to start tracking all your stakeholders, getting feedbacks from all of them, and trying to put it in whatever you are trying to test. Again, your impact analysis has to be highly automated, and when we say automated, the first time you'll have to define the strategy right and then automate it. Your intelligence based test scenario, test case generation, your automation framework which should support your execution very comfortably, whether it's a waterfall model, whether it's an agile model, whether your applications are enterprise, whether your applications are digital. The complete automation framework needs to understand where does a customer hit you from, what are the most used journeys, and whether I'm testing it on the most used journeys, whether that is covered well. And then again the AI enabled dashboard, which again helps put together what are the key areas where all these CXOs need to concentrate on. What are the business values? Why are we doing all this? So the major thought comes behind. We are talking a lot about cognitive. We are talking a lot about AI enablement. We are talking a lot about ML, deep learning. Why are we trying to put it in quality assurance? Because the development time is condensing, the complete DevOps time is condensing, and we have to actually ensure that our time also comes down along with them. So we have to ensure that the quality improvement first is faster. Whenever there's a feedback from a customer, it's not that every time a customer would have that patience. You have to build it back into your framework and ensure that the particular defect doesn't come back to the customer again. There are faster build movements. So as soon as a build comes in, whether I'm able to move it out, if you heard British talking about a release every 6 seconds, am I ready for that? And for that 6 seconds, how much time will a testing get? 30%, 2 seconds. So for a 2 second time, what can you do? That's the faster build movement that we are talking about. Obviously, a reduction in cost per build, a reduced mean time to repair. So when we talk about again a reduced mean time to repair, as soon as you find a defect, the teams have to respond as fast as that. So that feedback has to come fast to the requirement, eventually pass this quality gate and eventually get into the production. So how fast is this movement is another driving criteria for the entire QA. Any questions?
बोलली मी पप्पाकडे जाऊन झोप नखरे करू नको.
Hello. Am
No,
I
I think,
audible?
yeah, you can continue, Tanupriya.
Sure. So I'll just take you through one data science kind of thing that we have created for quality kiosk, where we have a complete data lake of different kinds of data. If you look at the logs, databases, and different data collected from various tools, there are call detail reports which are more from the IVR. There are the click streams, which shows how the different clicks have been done on a system. There are CSV files, data, documents. If you look at the text messages which comes in, there are WhatsApp messages, there are social media which keeps talking about different kinds of banks or different kind of insurance players, different kind of automotive players. So social media itself plays a major role in providing a lot of data from the feedback. If you have some apps which are there on your mobile and see there are ratings where customer puts in their feedbacks, this again needs to feed back to the system. So when you look at the system again, the kind of system that we have built in takes in all kinds of data. There are structured data, there are semi-structured data where a part of it is structured, a part of it is more of images or kind of analytics over that, and there are unstructured data which are there. When I talk about a social media feedback or something which I collect from an app feedbacks, it all comes under the unstructured data, where the data itself is not in a particular format, but you need to study it, understand it, and then analyze and put it in different buckets. And hence it results in a real-time business analytics that needs to come in place, a business versus IT failure. So you have to differentiate between what is failing at what level. If there's a business failure, what are the causes? And is it due to multiple IT points which is failing? I'll come more in details on this. A faster RCA, because this is something which is continuously feeding. A social media is continuously feeding into your system. So as soon as you get a bad rating, you immediately understand the RCA, pass it back to your customer. The customer analyzes, fixes, moves it back. So if there's a performance issue, you immediately come to know, okay, apps are running slow, frustrated. So those are the words which we catch and ensure that basis these words, we understand there's a performance issue. This needs to go back to the developer, immediately fixed and immediately redeployed. So that's a kind of RCA that we drive. The journey analytics majorly to see that the customer journeys are covered well, and we analyze it well enough to suggest what are the 80% customers taking which route, and then trying to replicate it back into testing. There are a lot of engagement metrics which gets generated, the knowledge management. So all of this actually result into what? it completely starts talking about your customer satisfaction. In the morning there was a question which came about how do you measure your complete quality. The quality is basically a customer success, a customer satisfaction, or a customer uh, uh, has to be, that customer has to understand and customer has to appreciate whatever you're doing. So if your customer is happy, the entire thing is perfect. Whether it's time, whether it's quality, whether it's cost, it finally ends up in a customer experience which is there. So moving further into the AI-enabled quality assurance, we have talked about visual testing, API coverage, codeless. So I'll just touch upon it to say what are the areas where you have a lot of AI-enabled movements. What are the different kinds of tools that are used? So if you see, there are various tools which have come up as a X generation tools, which ensures that most of these AI is not built. When we are building, say, a complete Anabot, which I just reflected back to you, it's from the kind of understanding of what all these vendors do. There are Apply tools, Eggplant, Test Sigma, Mabel. If you see all these teams, they work a lot towards ensuring that one part of this problem is solved. You'll have to put together all these parts to ensure that your end to end actually works well. What are the parts that these are trying to solve is basically leveraging the automated maintenance of scripts is one. Intelligent algorithms for navigating a software. So when you are moving through a software, when it is being developed or thought about, parallelly there's a system which scrapes your background and understands, okay, this is how it has to move and these are the areas which I have to touch. Eventually moving into detecting whether elements of your application have changed. If there's any element which changes, it updates your test to ensure that, okay, this has changed, hence these 5 things have impacted. Here, these 20 test cases definitely need to run. Being able to automatically understand what changes are likely to throw bugs. Say wherever there was a GST change which came in. With a GST change, if you see, most of the customers started testing a lot of their payouts. Whenever there's a calculation change which is there, financial change which is there, you will test all the financials which are going around with it. So you need to understand what are the likely bugs which will come up with this particular change, and then what are the different prioritization of development that you need to take up. There are some applications which are untouched. Do you want to still move them into testing? There are some applications which are directly impacted and every customer will touch it on their journey. That needs to be addressed first. Again, the data correlation which needs to be established with whatever you have generated as your test scenarios. Graphical analysis of test coverage vis-a-vis the codes which are getting changed. So there are codes which are getting developed, there are codes which are getting changed. A QA team or the quality assurance team needs to understand that we have covered the codes well, more as a code coverage analytic that we need to see, and graphically understand which codes are not touched, or which parts of my tests are redundant and don't need to be run because they are not touched any codes or they are not being touched by any codes. Machine learning again becomes a very critical thing for authoring, for execution and maintenance of all your automated tests. Increase in stability of the test suite. So these test suits keep changing. We have to ensure that this learning keeps coming in so that the test suite is at par with whatever is the client expectation, and moving more towards a natural language testing processing, because the more we get into tools coding, all your people, 80% of our teams have to get enabled on automation. When we talk about 80% of the team, we can't just remain at making them learn coding. They know the natural language. It's better to move them in a place where they understand, where they can easily make changes to their scripts and easily move it back to what they are testing. And this will enhance or help people actually test day one. As soon as the application is there, you look at the application, start scraping it, start writing your scripts right from there. When you are writing, rather stop writing your manual test cases. Whatever you are writing should address both. Assurance of your quality is the utmost thing, rather than looking at whether it's automated or manual. So that would help a lot in ensuring that the tests are covered well. Moving into what most of us are concerned about, or again the question that came up in the panel today: what is manual tester still alive? Is the manual tester, will the role of a manual tester still remain? It will. Where will a manual tester go? So that role definitely needs to be there. What we need to change is, change them either into a track which is more of analytical. You have to either take a track which is more strategist track. You have to understand, you have to model well. You have to start thinking about wearing a kind of BA hat, and this BA is not a simple BA that we talk about who knows the domain well. It's not just about knowing. You have to understand the complete architecture. You have to understand, if I make this change, what are the impacted areas which get impacted. So a QA role again doesn't stay with what we traditionally talk about. It's not the BA role. We have to turn into someone who thinks and someone who is very strong on data. So two, three main roles that stay or still continue is someone who can think and create business models, someone who understands data and who can appreciate the different kind of patterns that data throws at us, understand how to predict that data, understand how to build it back into the system and ensure that your system turns into an autonomous engine. And the third kind of role is people who are test experts, who are excellent at developing algorithms. And most probably the automation engineers also won't remain, because automation will also get automated. They have to move into the third domain, which is more of the AI test experts. So if you see all these roles, these are evolved roles of what we are doing today. We have people who are doing a lot around understanding or doing a BA role, which is more about the QA strategist. We have more of people who are right now doing the database testing. Now, database testing, does that ensure that you will become a data scientist? Not necessarily. Understanding a database and reading patterns are two different things. Again, you have to put a lot into your analytical side. You have to stop being writing SQL codes. SQL definitely will give you that kind of data, but move out of it and start looking at various languages, which gives you more of understanding of how to predict data, how to study data, around how to study customers which come into your systems. What are the different kinds of customers? What are the different geographies from where they come? What are the different buying patterns? What are the different paths they choose? Where do they stop? Where do they move out? And then it moves into the AI test experts, who are the people who actually start developing your algorithms, start modeling. And these are the people who start putting your natural language into place. They have to start playing with the natural language, creating those scripts to ensure that your natural language is the way of life. So
Tanupriya,
that,
we have just a last minute if you can just quickly. Okay,
yeah,
cool.
so that's all from my side. Yeah.
Cool. I guys,
So any questions? Yes.
cool. I don't see any questions yet on to the Slido board, so we can take a couple of questions if we have, guys. Feel free to ask any questions. We can take a couple of questions if you have any. I don't think so as of now. We have any questions? Cool. So thanks, Tanupriya. I'll just take up control. You want to
Sure,
say?
Sujay. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
cool.
So
Let
thanks, Sujay, and thanks, teams, for attending this. Any queries, you can anytime post it back to me, and feel free to ask those questions. This is more of a concept, and I feel all of us need to look at an elevated role going ahead. Thanks, ATAGTR, for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. So let me share my screen. So thanks, Tanupriya, for such an energetic session. It was really nice, and you really touched the point about the future of the QA, what we should be doing as a QA role. So thanks for that.